see you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Sorry, the phone is ringing. It's a popular spot, as some of you local folks may know. My name is Matt Weetrick with Jefferson Matters, and we're glad to have Senator here in town this morning. And on the interest of, a lot of what happens in our organization is economic development and supporting small business and, helping our small town thrive and do what we can do. And on that note, some of you know we were in Philadelphia last week and won the biggest award you can get for a Main Street community, the Great American Main Street Award, so we're very proud of that. And, there's things that, we talked to the Senator's office about with supporting CBDG grants and the tax credits we need to be able to do some of the projects we've got in town. So those are some of the messages that we've already had discussions about, and we hope that you've got some ideas on ways that your business or things you think that the Senator can take back to Washington to help Jefferson and Greene County, and that we all are here to be good listeners and respectful conversations, and that we're going to have good ideas and good conversation. So take it away.
Okay. First of all, congratulations for the award you got.
Thank you.
And everybody in this town knows about it, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, since this is small business and business generally, one of the key problems that we have to work on between now and hopefully mid-year, because if we don't get the tax bill done, we're going to have the biggest tax increase in the history of the country without even a vote of Congress, and I'll explain that. The 2017 tax bill, under the rules of reconciliation, if you don't have 60 votes in the Senate for a tax bill, you can't do it for more than 10 years. So that's why the 2017 tax bill will sunset, and when something sunsets, it just automatically goes back to the taxes prior to 2017. That would be about a $4+ trillion tax increase, and the biggest impact would be on middle class, and be particularly tough on small business because when we reduced the corporate tax rate in 2017 from 35 down to 21, if we didn't do something for small business, it'd be very unfair for small business to have a marginal tax rate of 35 or 37%. So we put in a provision for above the line 20% above the line reduction, which would then reduce that 35% tax rate that small businesses have or pass-through businesses would have, like the LLCs, to 29%. Now, there's still an inequity between corporations and small business, but it would be drastically worse if that would shoot back up to the marginal tax rate that individuals pay, because most small businesses file either LLC or they file as personal income tax. So maintaining that 20% above the line deduction for small business is very important. So those of you that are here representing small business, make sure you're on top of that, and you don't have to tell me to not have the biggest tax increase in the history of the country go into effect. But sometimes you hear some haranguing about it, that it's going to be the tax cut for very wealthy people. And remember, this isn't going to do anything more than preserve the 2017 tax bill the way it is. Then there's a provision of tariffs that if you're a retailer and you're selling something that's imported, may be very important to you as a small business person. And that would be the extent to which Trump is trying a new way of reducing taxes or reducing tariffs worldwide. I happen to be a free trader, a fair trader, and I've always advocated negotiating tariffs down. And Trump has felt that that hasn't worked. And so you heard all last year during the campaign that he was committed to raising tariffs with the idea of forcing people to the negotiating table that negotiates tariffs down. So he's in the process of doing that. And we've had over 100 countries have made entreaties to Washington, D.C. To reduce tariffs or to negotiate tariffs down. And yesterday, you may have heard on television that Japan came over specifically to do it. And in the case of Japan, where it's very difficult to get imports into, if we can negotiate these tariffs down, it'd be very good. Now, in the meantime, this process is going on, and we don't know how it's going to work out, but just the fact that Trump's procedure of raising taxes or raising tariffs to bring people to Washington, D.C. to negotiate tariffs down, if he's successful in doing that, he would be much more successful in what I've been advocating through the World Trade Organization or through multilateral negotiations, WTO negotiations, multilateral or even bilateral negotiations. Although I think we've been successful, but nowhere near as successful as what he could accomplish this way if these are successful. So if you want a judgment from me of how this is going to end up, there's no way I can give you that judgment. I can only tell you how it's proceeding in a way that it hasn't proceeded in the past. Is there any other small business people here, since this meeting was called for small business, that wants any more information from me on things that are going on in Washington, D.C. in regard to the taxes or tariffs or anything else you could think of in regard to small business? Go ahead.
I'm a farmer, does that count?
What?
I'm a farmer, does that count
Yeah.
as a small
Don't
business?
get it. Very much so.
All right. I got 2 or 3 questions about farming and the farm bill. It hasn't been rearmed since 2018, and we've tried to get a new fund up that tariffs our markets. And then comes along a pipeline company who want to take our farmland and want to give us a pittance for it and keep it forever. And they will get $45 a ton on a 45Q tax credit for all of the CO2 that they propose to take to North Dakota. I understand you've talked with the Iowa Farmers Union. I'm a board member there. And I understand that 45Qs can be stricken by reconciliation.
That's right.
And I wonder if that part of the budget process might be happening. It seems to me totally unfair, one, that they can take our land through eminent domain, which our governor has approved, And we're still working on getting that changed here in the state. I know you don't have anything to do with that right now, but the eminent domain can take our land, give us a pit, and then turn around and with our income tax, with our taxes in this whole room, pay this pipeline company to move this CO2 through our land that we've already had to give up. And I wonder what you would say about that.
I think you've got a good understanding of what is possible to happen, whether it will happen. I'll be able to answer that very definitively at this point, but I'll talk to it anyway. First of all, you brought up about 5-year farm bill, which now is a 7-year farm bill. I think we're 18 months ahead of where we were 2 years ago on a farm bill, because in September of last year, which is unapplicable now, but it tells you where we are. I'd like to say we're about 18 months ahead of where we were 2 years ago on a farm bill for this reason. Last year, the House Agriculture Committee put out a bipartisan farm bill, and then in the Senate, at that point, we did put out a bill, but the Democrat chairman of the committee had what they call a framework, and the Republican ranking member, now he's chairman of the committee, had a framework, and that framework for the Republican was about similar to what the House Representatives had. So where we just spent the last 2 years wondering what we were going to do and how you're going to pay for it, seems to me that we're much closer to getting a farm bill through. But now I wouldn't expect you to see much activity on a farm bill until maybe after this reconciliation is done. And I haven't had words from the chairman of the committee. I'm a member of that committee, but I'm not chairman of that committee. And when he's going to move on the farm bill, but he's already fully here. He's, I think, way ahead of before. Now let's go to 45Q. Let's start with what the situation is now. Maybe you don't have anything to worry about if South Dakota keeps its posture, because the Iowa permit to build a pipeline is based on the fact that it'll go through South Dakota and North Dakota. South Dakota's made the decision that it won't go through. But let's say it's going through, so I can tell you about 45Q. What my answer to what happens in 45Q is tied up with the fact that just like the law that set up 45Q was passed by a Democrat-controlled Congress and was just all Democrat votes with all Republicans voting against it, we're in the opposite position now, that this reconciliation bill that's going to become law and going to stop the biggest tax increase in the history of the country from happening, it's going to have to be Republican. So when we, of course, all tax bills start in the Ways and Means Committee of the House of Representatives and under our Constitution. But, and I can't speak to that, what they're going to do on 45Q. But it kind of works out this way without even telling you what's going to happen on 45Q, because it's based on the proposition that 14 Republicans on the Senate Finance Committee, and I'm one of those 14 Republicans, are not going to get any votes from the 13 Democrats on the committee. So what can we come up with that makes sure we don't have the biggest tax increase in the history of the country? So I'm telling you and other people that are against the pipeline, as I'm telling people that want to leave 45Q alone, that are for the pipeline. It depends, all this stuff that's in the 2017 tax bill and in the Democratic tax bill of 2 or 3 years ago, what does it take to get a majority to get the bill passed and not have the biggest tax increase in the history of the country? Because you can imagine for these small business people that came to this meeting, they don't want to give up that 20% above the line deduction that I've already talked about. So that's the best information I can give you. Okay. Any other, you want it?
Yeah, I'm Reagan Osborne. I actually own a coffee house just on the other side of the square.
Congratulations on being the boss of your own.
Thank you, but it's being challenged right now. Okay, so who ultimately pays tariffs? Who pays the tariff?
Well, it depends on, I suppose, what the product is, but it could be nobody paying it because it's absorbed.
It's absorbed by small businesses.
Well,
what you're saying is small businesses have.
No, you're answering your own question.
I know the answer. I'm wondering if you know the answer.
Yes.
Because you're not acting like you know the answer.
Yes.
You're not voting like you know the answer. You're not voting like you know the answer. You're supporting someone who is being a bully and using these tariffs to get his way. So here's what I'm saying is, listen to us, because you may do what you do, but we know small business and what you're doing is no favor. We need to keep the lights on, we need to pay our employees a living wage, which we do, but we're committed to that. Yet, we've just had to raise the price of coffee and drink, everything, for every single person who comes to my shop in this room. So these people, even the ones who don't own business, are paying for your little tariff war, which is absolutely unnecessary.
Okay.
So I answered your question.
Let me speak to that because everybody in this room knows that I was a farmer before I went to my son and grandson really run the family farm. So we have the same concerns this small business lady has, because we know that in the past, and it isn't true yet now, but the time will be true, if there is retaliation against our tariffs or anything we do, it's usually the agriculture that gets first. So she understands that I know for the 86,000 family farmers in the state of Iowa, that it could be jeopardizing them just like she is with it. But there's another thing about people that are against the tariffs right now. You got to remember, I think I said this 10 minutes ago, but I'll say it again because I think it's very important. It's probably a radical turn in politics that Trump ran on a platform of tariff because he felt the existing tariff things, and particularly our challenge to China, wasn't strong enough that he was going to put tariffs on. Now the shock about that is a politician that runs on a platform never stands on that platform. But Trump ran on that platform, and he's standing on that platform. So there shouldn't be any surprise of what's happening, as far as I can see. And but I'm going to take the doctor.
He also said it's going to be dictator.
Thank you. How long have you been retired? 12 years.
Kind of.
Go ahead. Well, that's so right. But you were able to work with a bipartisan bill in the Senate on tariffs to regain control, congressional control of tariffs. Yeah. And that's a courageous thing to do right now, given the party's position and its power in Grassley. That has to, in order to become law, it has to pass the House and then be signed by the President. That's probably unlikely. But in the House is so evenly divided. Don Bacon from Nebraska has already said he would go for a resolution, a discharge resolution. That means 4 Republicans that would each switch. Iowa has 4 Republican powers. have you visited with the Iowa House delegations about possibility of their getting on board our bill to regain congressional control of tariffs the way it was originally?
No, I have not yet, but we will.
Why not? Wouldn't that be a good idea? My bill's only been in a couple weeks. Let me explain to everybody what the situation is. This legislation would force a review after 60 or 90 days of President putting a tariff on if Congress wanted to review that, we could review it and on a fast track approach, which means that you don't have to have 60 votes to move it along. We could pass legislation overturning or modifying those tariffs any way we wanted to. Now, this is prospective, because I didn't want to be seen as the president carrying out his campaign promises that I was doing it just because I thought there was a better way of getting tariffs down globally. So it's prospective, but it's very, very important that we do this, because Section 8 of Article 1 of the Constitution, which is the powers of Congress, one of the 18 powers of Congress is to regulate interstate foreign commerce. And in 1963 and 1974, Congress delegated that power to the president. Not, I don't want to say 100%, but too much power to the president. And by the way, between 1954 and 1980, Democrats controlled both houses of Congress for those whole 24 years. So this is something that and I'm not doing it to chastise the Democrats for doing it, because maybe Republicans voted for it at the same time. Maybe Republicans thought it was the right thing to do at that time. But I don't think it's the right thing to do when the Constitution writers gave the power to Congress and to give it up, and then to have no control over it. So my bill is to bring that control, and I compliment Congressman Bacon for doing it. And I'll do what I can to get the legislation passed. By the way, this is not just my bill. It's called the Grassley bill. That Grassley bill is she's from Washington State and a Democrat and former chairman of the Commerce Committee. And that's why she and I teamed up 2 years ago to introduce a bill bringing pharmaceutical benefit managers under control because they drive up the price of drugs, and it's our effort to get drug prices down. So I have a good working relationship with her, not just on trade or not just on something. By the way, you might say, well, how come we didn't have a Cantwell-Grassley bill 2 years ago? Well, if I was talking about tariffs 2 years ago, who would have paid any attention to it? So I kind of compliment Trump for bringing the tariff issue up, because it brings me the opportunity to bring up the tariff issue from a constitutional point of view. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Shipper, and I graduated in this town. I live in this town, and I don't want to have to go down the thing. I can't sleep at night. In fact, I have prayed that I could talk to you, and thank you very much for coming today. Can you give all of us any hope at all that you can control the President of the United States?
If I told you I would could control the President of the United States, you'd all laugh at everything.
Checks and balances.
I'm not going to say that. Okay? And
Is there anything you can do? You got us here.
well, yes, I can operate it. I do. Just look what I was trying to do is to keep residents under control.
But I just hope you will keep going and really, I wish I was here. I wish I was rich. I wish I was real smart. Because I would like to go and do something, but I can't. And you can't. This is not.
I think you gotta realize that my reputation in Washington is being, like you learn in 8th grade civics, checks and balances of government. I call it oversight, that I have a politically neutral idea and oversight. I don't do things different when we have a Republican president than we have a Democrat president. And that's my reputation. I intend to continue to live by that reputation. What is?
Good morning, Senator Grassley. Thank you for coming to King County and Jefferson. I want to thank you for your long service as senator.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your work on the judiciary.
Thank you.
My question, the one I chose to cast your spin. Throughout your public service, you have worked to boost appreciation, especially among the younger set, for our government's.
Can you wait till I get close?
Oh, right, sorry. I think I'm close.
Go ahead.
Throughout your public service, you have worked, and I appreciate your work, to boost the appreciation, especially among younger set, for our government's system of checks and balances, which you just referred to. How do you think that system is working with Mr. Trump, believing he is not required to follow U.S. court's orders? What happened?
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is what he said. It's got a two-part answer to it. Number one, I will abide by the court, but I will also appeal. And so you just have to wait until that process works out. Now, Congress can't interfere in the courts. We got oversight of the courts if you want to. In fact, next week or a couple weeks from now, I'll be speaking to I don't know what the Supreme Court calls their group, but they get a bunch of magistrates, a bunch of district court judges, circuit court judges, and 3 or 4 Supreme Court judges. I guess they call it some judicial council or something. I'll be speaking to them to tell them when I think the courts ought to do differently what they're doing. And then I've got this bill that the doctor over here asked me or asked me about to put in as a check on it. I've got 34. We have more than 34. We got 40 or 41 investigation cases going on. Some of them since Trump's been in office, but most of them go back to maybe Trump 1, or a lot of them are from Biden. So through these investigations is another check that you use, but we all have to live within our own constitutional responsibilities and abide by the Constitution.
You know, one follow-up question?
Yeah.
Who has the ultimate authority? Ultimately, at the very end of all
Well,
court procedures.
Let me say that's not an easy question to answer, but I can answer it this way. Partly from a recent Supreme Court case that the court said the president wasn't doing enough in regard to the person in El Salvador, but it also, the court said to the district court judge that they were reviewing his case, they said to the district court judge, when you ask the president to do things about bringing this guy back, you got to make sure you don't interfere with the president's responsibility as being the constitutional right to drive our foreign affairs, because that comes directly from the Constitution, not anything from the laws of Congress. So you've got the courts saying where he came up short, but they're also saying to the judge, don't interfere with the constitutional responsibilities of the president to direct our foreign affairs.
And do you feel the return of an improperly arrested and imprisoned person is a foreign affair?
Without judicial. You're talking about the guy in El Salvador.
That's right.
I brought along some document that we got. Can you read that to her? This answers your question more fully than I can. What's your step? Let me separate.
So, I'm Jen from Senator Grassley's office. So we've been, as you would expect, getting a lot of calls on this topic. So we wanted to have some facts to share with you all about it.
A script. You got a script.
Let her speak, please. Let her
If
speak.
you'd like me to share the facts that I've prepared, I'd like to do that.
Why don't you share it? You can write it. She doesn't want to be echoed. She reads it.
You say that.
That's what you meant by people being
We're here to share information, so I'd like to share it. Garcia is a native citizen of El Salvador who entered the United States illegally in 2011. In the course of the 2019 immigration proceedings, the federal government twice concluded that Garcia was, quote, a verified member of MS-13, end quote, which is now a designated foreign terrorist organization. Garcia first known.
She's Secretary of Homeland Security.
This is a court case, so Garcia vs. Nome, number 25CV0951PX, appended as Exhibit A to the government's response brief. So this is just citing it, I'm not sure you care. Garcia has an active removal order. Garcia's status was withholding of removal, meaning he did not currently have asylum or any other permanent legal status to remain in the United States. Garcia has engaged with the immigration court several times, and the immigration courts denied a previous asylum claim. Because Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador, now physically present in El Salvador, he is subject to that nation's jurisdiction. The president of El Salvador is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States Supreme Court.
Keith?
Can you comment on that, please?
I think we better go on to something else.
Yeah, sorry, that's garbage.
Yeah, that's not
Hi, I'm Megan Holtz. I'm a farmer, small business owner, and a mom and a woman, and I have a lot of questions for you, but I thought I'd ask my dad because
Wait a
he was.
minute till I come back.
Oh yeah. I thought I'd ask my dad because he was an intern for you in the '80s. Actually, he's been a lifelong
Start
Republican.
over again.
Term limits is what she said.
I'm Megan Holtz.
If you all be quiet, I can hear.
I'm a farmer, a mom, a woman, a local business owner, and I have a lot of questions for you. First, I want to thank you for your service. You have been my senator my entire life. So I didn't know what to ask you. I have a lot of questions, so I asked my dad. He was an intern for you in the '80s, actually. He's been a lifelong Republican. And he said your voicemail box was full this morning. He asked, I said, if you had one question to ask Senator Grassley, what would it be today? And he said, he wants to ask you why you are spending time attacking the judicial branch with your Judicial Relief Clarification Act. Well, as a leader in the Senate, the legislative branch sits by and lets the executive branch destroy the government services that everyday Americans in our world depend on.
Will you let me read that?
Yeah, here.
Forgive me.
Can I ask a respectful question?
Yes.
I can just summarize it. She wants to know why you're attacking the courts with your universal injunctions bill. She
Oh.
sees that as an attack on the courts. Her father wants to know why you're doing that, not doing
No,
it.
thank you for asking that question. We have 93 district courts in the country. 2 of them are in Iowa. We have more than 600 district judges. The Constitution is very clear with just 2 words in the Constitution that a court can only hear what's called cases and controversies. Okay, so you go before the Supreme Court, and first of all, you go before the district court, and you've got a case there that they can hear under the Constitution, and they can make that decision for you. But this judge, out of the 600, is going to decide that he's going to have a national injunction nationwide when he's only got the power to give judgment for you and your case. So you can't have one district judge making a decision nationwide with an injunction. And an example of this would be a district judge that ordered Trump to spend $2 billion on what, I don't know what it was, but it was something that Trump was going to hold up. Said spend $2 billion and do it in the next 2 months or 60 days. Okay, so you have a national injunction saying that, but you actually hear the case after the 2 months and the $2 billion are spent. So if the judge would rule that Trump was right, then what can you do about it? Locking the barn door after the horse is stolen. So a national, first of all, there's never, tell your dad there's never been a national injunction the first 175 years of our country. And then about 15, 20 years ago, it gradually creeped up till now we've got about 13 or 14 just in this presidency. So you've got 1 of 600 judges deciding that it ought to apply all over the country, and it could be going against things that the Supreme Court might later overrule. But we want, this bill will do away with national injunctions and just have your case decided for you and nobody else. In other words, they're doing what the Constitution intended. Now, this legislation, at least right now, would not get the 60 votes to go through the United States Senate. So the Supreme Court, 4 Supreme Court justices have said in separate cases that we shouldn't have national injunctions, or maybe implying that the Supreme Court ought to do something about it. And the Supreme Court can do something about it through what they call their issuing of civil procedures or something like that. And those, they can't put them into effect themselves, but under laws that Congress passed, they can change their rules of civil procedure to outlaw injunctions, and then that comes to the Congress, and if the Congress doesn't overrule it in a 6-month period of time, those go into effect, and most of the time, Congress doesn't do that. So the Supreme Court has the ability to do it, and under the checks and balances of government, when I talk to the Judicial Council in a couple of weeks, I'm going to say the Supreme Court should be doing this because we're never going to get it done. It's wrong to have one judge out of 600 have a case that doesn't even come to his court but apply nationally.
Well, it'll stop attacking the judicial system, maybe it wouldn't.
I hope you'll tell your dad that.
I think his concern is what we're talking about, checks and balances. Why are we trying to take away the check of the judiciary? Why are we
Until I can hear you.
Why are you trying to take away the check of the judiciary? Yeah.
That's the concern.
We're keeping, tell your dad, we're keeping the judiciary within its constitutional bounds. Okay, sir?
Oh, Senator Harold McGee, you and I share our Northeast Iowa connection and heritage, I believe. I want to follow up on some of these comments, and you answered a lot of the questions I already had about the judiciary, because I've been in legal profession for 50 years. You are familiar with Shakespeare's Henry VI statement? First thing we do is kill all the lawyers. And the context is that's how we take over the government. And that's my concern of what's going on with the judiciary.
Yes.
You can know administration calls for idiots.
Let me ask you a question for clarification. You're saying the judiciary is taking over the government?
No. Shakespeare's quote is, first thing we do is kill all the lawyers so that the administration and executives can take over the government. And I have a real concern about that. Lost my train of thought. The question I have to ask you is, do you condone administration calling dedicated public servants, judges, people like that, as idiots, morons, and should be impeached or fired? Do you condone those kind of...
No, I'd never say that myself.
Our president...
You call them out?
I guess I wanted to ask an actual business question, because that's what today's meeting is about, is what about tax credits, and the energy tax credits and the housing tax credits? I know there was a bunch of videos done on the energy tax credits, and there's fraud in them. I know that there's a housing program, project that's looked at in Jefferson right now, $14.5 million for, it would be for 50 units, that's $290,000 a unit. And of that $14.5 million, $13 million comes from our tax dollars. That's less than a 20% investment of that investor, which is out of state as well. I'd like to know how you stand on that and what you think of tax credits as a whole.
Yeah. You asked two questions, one on energy and one on housing.
Yes.
I think I can say effectively that the housing tax credit will stay in. Now, when it comes to the energy issues, I got to give you the same answer I gave this lady up here when she was asked about 45Q. The only thing that I can tell you with some certainty, by the way, before I answer that question, let me give you the background, the attention that this tax bill gets. Every Monday at 5:45 p.m., we meet each Monday, so that's been 13 Mondays in a row, meet to discuss taxes. We've had at least 4 or 5 Republican caucuses that have been devoted to it, as I'm sure the Democrats have done the same thing in their caucus, and meetings like that. So what I'm saying to you isn't nailed down as much as it should be, considering the fact I told you we've been discussing this so much. But one thing that I can tell you about the energy tax credits, the only thing that I'm sure is not going to be continued, and this comes from the Inflation Reduction Act that I told this lady up here, and if you were here, it passed entirely with Democrat votes, no Republican voted for it, is the electric vehicle tax credit. All the rest of them, I'll have to give you the same answer I gave to her. There's some people in our caucus would do away with everything in the Inflation Reduction Act that passed 3 years ago, which would do away, not with the housing tax credits, but it would do away with everything else. And then some people would say we shouldn't touch anything, but it's going to be pick and choose, and I can't tell you how it's going to be picked and choose at this point. Whatever it takes to get 51 Republicans to vote for it in the end, because it's going to have to pass on a bipartisan vote, just like the Democrats did on their reconciliation. I'll listen to you, sir.
Good morning, Senator.
If there's anybody up here that wants to ask a question, I got it.
My question to you is March the 16th, 2016, you were sent the nomination of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. For 293 days, you ignored that nomination. You were the chairman of the Judicial Committee. You did not hold hearings. You did not do your job. Tell us why.
Yeah. I'll give you the same answer I did in 2016. You probably asked the same question then, so you won't hear anything new. It's been the case for the last 140 years that when you have a president of one party and a senate of the other party, and it's getting close to a presidential election, the Senate doesn't approve of that. And so we had a Democrat president that year, and the Republicans controlled the Senate. So that's why we didn't bring it up. Next question.
But sir, it was your responsibility to at least hold hearings.
Exactly, that is in the Constitution.
Business question?
The person, yes. No, I'm going,
It's all
the
business.
gentleman ahead of you, I called. You didn't have your hand up, sir?
This young lady's been waiting a long time.
She votes in November. Her first time.
I guess you're very persistent. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was wondering why, as a Christian going to be voting, why as a going to be 18-year-old I have less rights than what my grandmother did at 18.
But I can't hear you, but I'm not going to walk back to you. What did she say?
Why does she have less rights now at 17 than her grandmother did?
Are you talking about the SAVE Act that passed out?
Talking about abortion rights, soon to be voting rights, DEI, where she might not get a job because
The
she's
SAVE Act, I doubt if it's going to get 60 votes in the United States Senate to even come up.
How will you vote?
If you're worried about some interpretation in the House bill, that if you're married and change your name, you won't be able to vote,
That's not what she's talking about. She's 18.
Why
she's not
should
getting
she
married.
vote for a party that actively works against her? Did you hear that?
before you repeat her, let me finish what I was
Wait a minute, that's not a question.
What?
though. I don't know.
state it.
Okay, I can see.
No, that definitely was a question. Why should I vote for a party that works against my gender?
Okay, why should she vote for Republicans? That works against
No,
her.
say it how she
Ask the question, why should I vote for Republicans when they actively work against women?
Why should she vote for Republicans when they actively work against women?
Well, I guess, as I look at it, the Republicans offer,
That's not right. That's the correct answer.
nothing.
I don't think that question asked for you. Yeah, but
The point of order would be specific.
I think the answer is
Be
because
specific, address it. You say Republicans are against women. Wrong. Be specific.
Why are you answering
Why
that
are
question?
you
Answer
Find your own answer.
consistent basis.
Are you my senator?
Logical conclusion.
but the senator is. Anyway, I think you find Republicans are for lower taxes, less spending. I think you find Republicans following the Constitution to a greater extent.
How does that answer her question, sir?
I think she
She
forgot the other.
asked me why you should vote Republican, so I can.
No, why should women vote Republican?
Women.
I'm answering the question whether it's women or men.
Turn on your hearing aids.
You're setting a great example for young adults right now. There's a lot of women here that want to hear the answer.
She's asking why she at 17 is going to have less opportunities than I did as a 78-year-old.
I don't think she's going to have less opportunity. That's
She already does.
Understood what she's getting at.
And it's my job to see that she doesn't have less opportunity.
Exactly, that's what they're asking. how are you going to make sure that she doesn't have less opportunity? I was the first woman at Meredith in labor relations. I was the first person in personnel with my gender. She's worried about her future and how the Republicans might go. Thank you. And thank you so much. I'm 78, you're 91, right? That you have the energy to stand honest to God, in front of a group like this. Yes. I have grandkids too. I think you're half of it. That you have the energy and the patience and the willingness to come where all of us are.
I've been doing this for 45 years, and my colleagues ask me, why would you go out there and give people that are anti-Trump an opportunity to have theirs? So I have advice in Washington not to do this, but I've been doing it for 45 years because I'm one half the process of representative government. You're the other half. You're one of 3.3 million people that I have to represent. This is the best way to get your opinions, even when you're mad about something, and listen to it and give the best explanation how you do it. But I also tell a group like this, been doing it for 45 years, that I only see a few people face to face like I'm seeing you, but this is not where this meeting should end. You should email me, postal mail me. If you call in and give your name and address, I'll be glad to answer, because I think dialogue between me and you is the essence of representative government, and that's what we're doing here. And I'm not going to take my colleagues' advice and stop doing it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Can I answer just briefly before my friends out here? No. Just as I came in, I met Noah back here, who is, tell me your title again, Noah.
Regional Director for the Senator.
He's the Regional Director for the Senator, and he gave me his card, and I'm following up. Make sure you either get his card or get the address. Like Reagan says, we're having trouble getting through to you because your website is down. And we really appreciate you being here. And I'm going to sit down and these people know it's hard for me to stay still. So I'm going to let you take other questions.
There's one right here.
Why is our website down?
It's not down, it's up right here.
Oh, it was, look at the banner on the top, sorry. The website isn't down, you should email instead of call, because you can't take your call, because the high volume of calls.
Well, if mine's down, all send websites.
No, I'll explain this. Your website is not down. So when the banner up top is what she's talking about, which says due to high call volume, please share your information here. So a call in, we totally understand people want to talk on the phone. There's only so many people, just that you're a small business, you only have so many people that can answer the phone. We have a high call volume. We read every single message, and every single phone call is also dictated down to be read. So there's a lot of organizations that are sharing that a call, an email is not as effective as a phone call. There's no difference to us if your preference is to call or email, whichever you'd like to do. Everything gets read, everything gets responded to, and we have a 30-day turnaround goal. Everything gets responded to, so. If you're having trouble, Noah's here, I'm here, that's why we're here, to hear your point of view.
Yesterday's mail count was 34,000 that haven't answered yet.
Yeah.
There's about 3,000 or 4,000 that are more than that 30 days delay. But yeah, if for some reason you never get a response to it, let me know, because we got everything we have, and we can then find out why you didn't get answered. But our goal is to answer every phone call if you leave your name and address, to answer every email, and things of that nature, because that's how you keep, you can imagine, I don't see 34,000 people face to face like I'm seeing you guys today. So we get most of our opinions from emails from the vast majority of people.
We got time for one more question.
What?
Time for one more question.
Couple more questions back there.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate your willingness to come in front of all of us. I will comment that I have frequently called the senator's office, and I have received responses from him, not immediately, but eventually I have received a response. I appreciate you being here because your email has been full. I've been trying to call for 3 weeks and have been unable to get through. I do prefer to speak to somebody in person when that's an option. I have 2 questions. The first is, are you allowed to support ideas that are in contrary to the administration if they are what your constituents want, and what are the repercussions if you go against the administration? And then my second question is, farmers have been bailed out because of tariffs in the first go-round, and then there's talk about that happening again. And how does that affect our small business owners, like our coffee shop owner? What sort of subsidies will she get from the government to help the increased costs that are put upon her because of tariffs? And thank you for being here.
The first question, as recently as last night, I don't want to tell you about the conversation, but I got a call from the White House and they asked me to do something, and I said, I'm not going to do it.
Will small business owners be receiving subsidies like farmers will be because of the tariff?
Only, whatever the answer to that question is, well, in regard to just tariffs, is that your question?
Yes.
Probably not. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Here you go, Misty. That's
But understand this, farmers want to get their income from the marketplace. They don't want to get it from the federal treasury. So another place where I've been trying to put pressure on Trump's administration through EPA is this. We got biodiesel plants shut down in Iowa because the Biden administration only allowed 3 1/10 billion gallons to be mixed with petroleum diesel. And we can produce more than that, but if you can't market it, you shut down. So I'm saying to the administration, because they're already talking about sometime this fall, if these tariffs are bad on farmers, that they're going to do what they did in 2019, put out billions of dollars to farmers. But if they would give us, I've been saying to the EPA director, because I get these figures from our biodiesel plants that are closed down, if you can give us 5 3/10 billion gallons for the next several years for us to mix with petroleum diesel, that's going to up the price of soybeans tremendously. Now that's not going to up the price of corn, but if we could just have the marketplace work and get these biodiesel plants going, there wouldn't be a need, at least for soybean farmers, to have a bailout. Thank you all very much.